That's the stack over. This question you're like, well, that's a 2D array. Because it would be mono and it's stereo. That's what it is. By linear array. So that might be because it's that zero that's what they're back. So that would make sense. The first one is your.
Okay, I think we're going to start making in about 5 minutes or so. So if everybody wants to grab a slice, audio good for every time. That sounds good. And
okay. Now it makes sense. I should add that. Why is it? Was a big straight 80-year-olds at the August budget. For a website, yeah, we have a website that's just come here from the
So did you say it was your first time here?
So traffic just that web
Oh, it is not. It's a very tiny process. Yeah. Not by working in medical. It's upset.
Yeah, like the TLDR. It's there's a surprising amount of
Right. But it's weird. It's like this sort of practical ways.
Okay, I think it's about time to get started. If everybody wants to find a seat.
It's more
So that's fine.
I'm great.
But yeah,
We ready to rock?
I'm just gonna do my normal quick spiel and then probably go there. Just wait for, just wait on Ernest. Wait on Ernest, we're all waiting on Ernest. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I think we'll get started. So thank you everybody for coming to this month's web devs. My name is Antonio, I'm the host for the month. Anybody who's watching on the stream, we're gonna come down in person, we're gonna go downtown. But yeah, first things first, I want to thank IDX for this great space. It's cool they let me do this here still. I used to work here at IDX. I don't anymore, but they like this community building and they're nice enough to let me do this. Also thanks to 20 Ideas where I currently work. It's a great place to work. I've worked there before. They're very encouraging about community building as well. So really appreciate to have both those organizations support this. Yeah, so don't, right, I do next month? After, okay, so June, that's right. So I haven't scheduled July's meetup yet. I need to contact the speaker who's going to do it, but that will be on meetup.com or it always is. It'll be the last Thursday of the month, like it always is. And yeah, I think that's it for announcements. So let's let Greg get the show going. Everybody, Greg.
Yeah, thanks to Antonio. I used to work with him. It's fun. I work for a public health company. It's we're all remote. We track diseases and the next big thing that's happening. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. The rest of us are here because we presumably work on stuff on the internet. I did want to get a quick query of the room. Who here wears design shoes? Sometimes or all the time. Design.
Just
design.
what?
No, any design. If you make rectangles in a creative way, I wouldn't say that I don't design. I tack features on, but I like to round up to a designer. So those hands. Okay, so those of you who dabble in development, if you put pixels on the screen, so there's like some slight overlap, sweet, with varying degrees of confidence. And then those of you who find yourself in managey places who are cracking whips, I see crossover between all three of those things. Well, okay, so how many of you are on a team like bigger than one? So, or I probably should have said that. Yeah. Anyone here run their own show? A couple of y'all. That I applaud you. You have a lot of work to do to get things out the door. Anyone here work with teams that are like, I guess, like 10 people or more to get things out the door?
In one team?
So if you think about your feature, the amount of people that your feature goes through before it gets shipped.
Designers, QA.
So designers, QA, developers, as a feature rolls through. Some of you are like teetering on the edge. Yeah, that makes sense. Around there, like that's a big team anyway. So a big part of this is less about methods of accessibility. There's a lot of Googling and courses and things that explain about that. It's more of navigating, getting accessibility features into your pipeline of things that your designers care about, things that your developers code, and things that your project managers will give you time for. Because often that can be one of the biggest headaches. None of us here, I presume, are terrible people. And would actively do something. I mean, some of you are self. You're raising your own hand, self-aware. But for the most part, given the time and knowledge, we would do the best we can. Sometimes there's not knowledge, sometimes there's not time. So this is hopefully to solve at least a bit of two of those issues. So, my phone doesn't actually show me what slide we had. Hey, so a little bit of just introduction to accessibility bits. Those of you who haven't seen the acronym A11Y, all the letters between accessibility, because my fingers get tired at some point of the day. different benefits for your teams and your own workflows as you go through. I'm quite convinced that an accessible app, regardless of the people it helps, makes a better application. And ways to integrate it into your pipeline wherever you are along this journey. But then also ways that you can plug for accessibility to the other parts of your team. And I'll have a list of like links and things at the end, and the slides are shared. I can also add to this as well. And if anyone has a burning question, like throw your hand up. I can either say, sure, or we'll get to it in a moment, or I have no idea, ask me something. So a few types of disabilities we can think about are permanent disabilities. It's the more obvious one. Folks who use things on a day-to-day basis, like this is their life. What was your name? Sorry.
Christine.
Christine, yeah, you mentioned that you work with social services and help people who this is their life. And that's just the way it is. And so being able to make tech for them because it is surprising. Yes, everyone would like to use the internet. And the more people that can use your products, the better. So examples of that are assisted keyboards, or we have screen readers, or there's a myriad of ways. There's the cool Braille readers that they like put up little Braille bits for your finger just to feel as it reads through a website, and that sounds fascinating to me. There are temporary disabilities. I dislocated my shoulder a couple of years ago, and everything got a little bit more difficult. Another temporary disability is children. Mine are being babysat by grandparents right now. It makes it difficult to use anything. I said maybe it's more of a situational, but if you have any sort of surgery or things that happen, being able to still use your applications as you would want to live your normal life. But then lastly, yeah, situational. If the sun is on your phone screen, but your colors are wrong, all of a sudden someone can't really use your app very well. If you don't account for dark mode and things, and all of a sudden all of your colors disappear. There's lots of niche situations that don't necessarily impact someone with a permanent disability or temporary, but it's the situation that you have a child in one arm right now, but you still need to make that reservation on whatever app it is. So, quick question. Does anyone here use a screen reader on a regular basis? Or know someone who has? Developers or just folks?
Not a developer, not a developer.
It's fascinating to me. There's a wonderful interview I heard of a full-time developer. He has his laptop closed off to the side and completely blind. He uses a screen reader for everything. So has very big opinions on VS Code or whatever he happens to be using. Another developer mentioned that he likes to have his laptop screen still like a decent size and at head level just for people who come by to help him or to show them things. So it's actually accessible for someone else that's there. Because otherwise, he doesn't need it. It's all in his ears. And has anyone here ever used a screen reader? You testing something? For those of you who haven't, this never fails to blow my mind as if you're a pretty good reader, you're at like 250, 300 words per minute. If you're like a speed reader, you can go upwards of like 700 words per minute. This is 400 words per minute as a screen reader to be able to chew through your wall of content that you have on your page.
I didn't understand anything.
And this is like the fourth time I've listened to this, kind of getting ready. I'm actually starting to pick out some words now. I had to do a project where we had to send this whole site for an accessibility check, so I'm going through. And you slowly start turning up your screen reader because it is laborious to go through your same things over, and then you start to realize, oh, I can't just scan through things. There's got to be a better way to do this. Then we can get to that with developers. Anyone here, any sort of color blindness? Well, look at you, blessed souls. And there's so many different kinds of colorblindness. My father-in-law's colorblind. We got him the glasses to like fix things. It sort of worked. That doesn't work for everyone. If you look in your Chrome DevTools, you'll find an emulation for a gazillion kinds of colorblind, and there's lots of resources to sort of open your eyes. Oh, there's a reason why these contrast levels need to be so. And it will account for all of those edge cases that I doubt all y'all want to go through and case by case check every single one of your colors. All right, who uses a keyboard? Anyone? Is there like more or less primary control? Yeah, the developers. Yeah, of course they do. The mouse. In other words, so just knowing on your own site and using your own products with a keyboard, you realize that, oh, this is convenient. I can leverage this to be both accessible and convenient for more than just myself. And there are other modified controls, but it seems like we may have run out of things we're familiar with.
Voice recognition.
Voice recognition and things. I haven't quite gotten there. I just get so angry at my phone sometimes. I apologize for some of the places I forgot to make text larger. Accessibility faux pas here. Now, who here has, when they've searched for accessibility, you see lots of results for widgets you can add to your page? Accessibility is one. They're even when I'm searching anything accessible, these these companies will put all the things there. Now, there's a delicious URL. Should you use an accessibilityoverlay.com? Now, in the room here, very few of us use screen readers, or we've dabbled. Very few of us use assistive tech on a daily basis. Therefore, very few of us should have strong opinions on some of these things. And this is the way to also be an accessibility advocate, is to listen to the voices of the community. And let's see what they say. Whoever goes here, they say no at all. And then they give you an endless list of blog articles and people who use accessibility tech every day to show that bad accessibility is worse than none at all. So it's a shortcut that these companies try and sell that say, hey, designers, don't worry about it. You don't have to make your colors. We'll just fix it with this button. Developers, don't worry about it. You know how hard it is to do something? We got it. And then project managers will like this. We're like, look at that. This line item just got a lot cheaper. Let's just ship it instead. This is my pitch for all of you. If you ever see this, you can, my contact information is on meetup.com. You can send me a DM. I will talk to whoever it is that you're arguing with. There's no reason to use any of those things. There is a myriad of reasons to use a better platform and a better design. Don't let these people steal your money. A few examples of sites. You know, the Screamin' Jays? The place rocks. It's kind of close to here.
Well, they've been closed for a year now.
They've been closed for a year. They are close to here.
That too, they were.
Oh, their website's still up.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. I mean, it's just going to town. So a few things, colors or whatever. I hope no one has epilepsy. This dialogue, actually a good dialogue. I was tabbing through this earlier, and it does something that the Eugene Web Dev site doesn't do. Is it captures your cursor, keeps it on this dialogue, and gives you a way to close said dialogue. Because if you can't click or use escape per se, because you're tabbing through something, having both a way to activate something and get rid of something. However, the moment that this comes up and screams in your face like, hey, you can sign up for our newsletter when you're going through with the screen reader, and then dumps you back at the top of the site, it's probably extraordinarily annoying. That's just a fun little example. This great quote from Tim Berners-Lee. He made the World Wide Web, so he deserves attention. The power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. And it's part of our job descriptions. And that's okay. It will be more difficult, but that's what we do. It's kind of a fun little challenge at the end of the day. And then constraints are the mother of invention. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, hey, what's some sort of quote? And it gave me this. I'm like, no. It's like, nah, Plato sort of said that in a sense. However, I would like to use this as an idea. The constraints that accessibility provides will make you a better app. When we start ignoring the platform, when we start ignoring like semantic HTML elements or bad colors, or we just start shipping things out the door because we stop caring, you're going to have a worse product for it. So listen to Plato. So now's the part of the show where there's mention of tools and or how to accumulate said tools. All of these things, there are tools. People have been begging for more accessible apps. And when a developer has a problem, they make a tool. Now, the hardest part with any tool that a developer has made is no one uses my tool, which I made an accessibility like a roving tab index thing. It's like maybe like 15 downloads a month, but it's probably on some CI, so it's fine. But still, there are tools for these things. So at the very least, I'd like to bring these up, and you can add these to your whole repertoire. For you designers, there's color contrast checkers all over. I have a native one that I'm able to check contrast. You can get one that goes through Figma and looks at every foreground and background color, and both it flags things that are not accessible. It has several levels of accessibility, and it can suggest colors that are accessible. Use them, because after you get colors and things approved, I was doing an accessibility project, and it came to me, and I was going through on my developer side, because there's also these checks for that. I was like, sir designer, I got on a Zoom call, your colors, they're not accessible. All of these things are invisible to anyone who's trying to use them, that either can't see very well, it's in sunshine, is colorblind, etc. And he says, I don't have enough political capital to change those colors. I'm like, sir, I don't know how to move forward. And then my project manager had a meeting with me afterwards and says, you need to be more nice. Chris is great. I may have been terse, I don't remember. But otherwise, this will protect you from very sticky situations when a developer starts going on something and they have tools for accessibility, come back and try to change things. So a fun thing to do, if you're familiar with the console on your browser, is you can remove all the styles to see what things look like. Designers, I would challenge you that if your idea should make sense with no styles, and then the styles will then enhance all of it. So I took the Eugene Web Dev site and I erased all of the styles on it. And you know what? That's not bad. And it actually brought up an issue that I wasn't going to drag the Eugene Web Dev site unless I was going to put up a PR to like fix things. Then Antonio told me he's just going to throw the whole thing out and rewrite it in Svelte. And he's accepting PRs, so anyone who would like to practice. This 50 thing here, why in the world does the meeting stuff show up twice? And it's because there's a mobile menu and there is a regular desktop menu, but they're not turned off when you're on a certain media query. So your screen reader will just cruise through and it will read all of those things twice, and there's actually no way to skip that. If you want to find a fun thing, you can tab through, and on most big sites, you'll find like a skip to main content button that will sort of pop out from nowhere. There's a lot of things that can sort of show up that like, oh, I didn't realize with some of the things here that I can make or I can make allowance, or I can make fixes for different bits. However, designers, I will say, this isn't more bad, this is a developer bit. But you can see here, at least the content goes through, there's semantic elements, and for each of the bits. This part, I would say, is a little bit confusing. I wonder how that's gonna come out in a screen reader. Maybe it'll put like development love together and then just start spelling things out and whatnot. So that would be something to go back and say, okay, have we sent this through a screen reader? Is this something that is gonna be okay? It's a clever feature, but our clever feature is also accessible. Also, consider all user interactions is someone will use your app on mobile. That's an accessibility bit. Maybe not for handicap reasons, but for folks who their only computer in their house is a tablet or their phone. I was a teacher for a while, and most of the kids, they either had a tablet from home or a tablet from school that we had, or their phone was their only bit. So if something you're making isn't available on mobile, it's not available for all people, and that's very important.
It's on demographic, not on demographic.
Yeah.
So you're disadvantaging very specific groups in most cases.
Yes. So it's if they're done are the days of the home computer, but not everyone had a home computer then. So for everyone who does have a computer, let's make sure they can see it. Consider all their interactions with keyboards, and that's I mentioned that already. A lot of you as developers use keyboards as well. It's a quick way to go through an app. It makes your app feel better. So, and the reason I bring this up with design is think about the flow of where a user would go through your app if your interaction was a focus square as it bounced around. A lot of folks don't like focus and what it looks like. I've had to go back and forth with some designers that like, hey, this button doesn't have focus styles. But like, well, the ones you put on are ugly. I'm like, yes, but it's better than nothing. And then they go back. So I'll default, I'll put styles on there and sort of wait. If it's too ugly, then they'll come back and give me a better one. But that's a very important interaction to know where you are as you use your keyboard through there. Yeah.
Were styles and GUIs just a mistake? Are we on a 20-year, 30-year mistake?
Yes.
Are you saying that design is not worthwhile? Because I feel like there's
design a
design
text
not
interface.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
But just text, like we don't
That's
need.
not-
Oh, we're getting into an artistic discussion. This man has no soul and feels nothing. Wanders through the depths of night.
If we go back a slide, the right-hand one was better. It's objectively better.
Objectively better. We're slinging words.
It's more dense. You get to see more. It's not just a blue box.
However, let us not discount the ability or the different ways people intake information. Some people need a wall of text that they can just read through. Other people are like, I can't read well. My father-in-law does not read well.
But that's just the font on your.
No, that's books. That's Harry Potter. When my partner, when she was growing up, that is books. As he would read books to them growing up, they finally got to a place where they could read faster than dad. They're just like, I'll take it from here. That's a big problem for people who don't read very quickly. So to have a wall of text or to have text that isn't put in a very coherent way, things are too close together. Between like letter spacing is a deal. Having font that's not just black and white. There's all sorts of ways to make this better for everyone, not just Reynolds.
Well, shouldn't that be up to the user? Like, shouldn't the user pick what font they want their headings to be, what font they want their paragraphs to be, and the appropriate sizing? And we just leave it to the user, and they go, I want to read fonts this size.
Everyone loves a chore.
And no one's saying form. The designer isn't making it look a very particular way. It's just text.
See, don't tread on me, web design.
Well, it's styled for everybody.
It's styled for
Well,
nobody.
they get to pick their font size, their OS, they pick their font size.
Yes.
I don't think the designer should be doing that.
Then I'm sorry, designers. There appears to be no more room for your position.
I mean, Figma and the.
Just gonna take your jobs anyway. All right. Well, as things start to take our jobs. I just noticed the meetup here doesn't have an X, so I had a hard time getting out of this, and there wasn't focus styles on the buttons there, but that'll be fixed in V2. Sure.
Well, I'm here, learning.
Hey. And screen reader is an interaction as well. Someone is not going to see your beautiful thing. One thing you can do, designers, is make sure there's alternative text that's associated with it, or to explain to your developer or leave notes around of the different words that might describe your design. If it's just an icon, there needs to be text to make up for the GUI mistake that we're all dealing with. And then you can think about if your interactions are too subtle, maybe they're not accessible. If they were more explicit, maybe it would make a better product. Or if your layout's too artistic and cutting edge, maybe simplify it a bit. It would also make a more usable product. So So it's kind of a cuts two ways. Lastly is non-tech native folks. Designing something that's easy for all people to use. Granted, there are use cases of maybe it's just the children who are using this app. And however, PBS has a free app for kids, like watch their content. It is a nightmare to use for an adult because everything's just a picture. It's like, I have no direction on this thing. It's not accessible for me. But to consider a bigger range of your audience beyond just use cases, but also like how familiar they are with technology in general. Also watching my in-laws do, or my parents do that. It's fun. Dev. There are a couple of ways here. There's manual inspection, which I think is a good way to get a. So the next couple slides are for developers. With these tools, there's a way to do manual inspection, and that can give you like a pulse for how bad things really are. And that's nice. So then you can make a ticket that would reflect that amount of work. Axe dev tools, I've linked to them. I really like the way they do things. They try to charge you money in a few places, but for the most part, they're the least money hungry folks of all the folks. I can vouch for them. But you can get things like this text here has bad contrast. If it doesn't pass the WCAG levels of contrast. And what's nice about this is it will highlight it for you. It will send you to the text. It'll show you all of the information you need to then go in as a developer to fix those things. Yeah.
Sorry, which one was that?
Axe, AXE, and it's by DQDEQUE, but I have links to those references. They have a suite of tools they have just their core, which will go on any browser, but then they also have integrations for popular frameworks and other GUI mistakes. You can automate this. So there are linters you can add to go through your code and catch easy things. And what it does is it takes out a lot of the noise. It can do a lot of the work to make your actual accessibility run through worth it. And it's always better to add that sooner in a project than later. Anyone who's worked with a large code base and trying to shift things later in the development cycle is less fun than having it already there to start things with. I like to do error-driven development. So put a new linter rule on, squash errors. So find your ESLint accessibility plugin framework. Throw that in your config. Is anyone here not familiar with ESLint? Do those same people, do you work with JavaScript? Good, okay. Essentially, linters are things that go through your code and find your little problems. And it's wonderful. If you open a code base and don't have a linter, I would start asking questions. It's 2023, we can automate a lot of this stuff, so we don't have to worry about it. The tools will do it for us. And they throw handy errors to then squash. So an example, also you can add Axe, instead of doing a manual inspection, you can add it to your app itself. So it spins up as you're developing on your local server, on your authenticated page, and it runs through your page as you go, and it throws these wonderful errors in your console to both have a link to the rule, the offending rule, the level of severity, so you can just start squashing those as you go through. So problems don't end up in your code base if you're able to catch them at this part of the site. I have links to all the Axe stuff later. So all of these things can be automated. Getting your code editor integration, I've helped more people copy paste the config that I stole from Wes Boss. He does like syntax FM stuff. It's really once your development environment is set up to catch these things, it's wonderful. I should throw some links into this later to some VS Code settings I have. Is to make sure all of this is loud and proud in your settings. My editor is extraordinarily noisy. That's a personal preference because my office is messy. Other people don't like that, so tune it to your advantage. But having these things show up well in your editor, I think is smart. Pre-commit hooks. Not everyone likes those things. Like Husky that'll run before you can commit. I knew it. I knew it. So that's okay. Personally, I like them. I understand the hesitancy. So if your team isn't down, don't push it on them. It's okay because your editor's set up fine. And at the very least, run it in CI or continuous integration so that something fails along the line for these things that are easily caught by code that should never make it into your code base in the first place. And I'll be around after if anyone wants to talk about any of these things. They all are pretty easy to set up. They all exist, and there's paths forward on all of this. Also, if you have to use a UI, you're stuck using a GUI, it's okay to use UI libraries. If you try to do widgets yourself, there's so much you don't know. And you and me and everyone included, it's okay to go to a community, and if it doesn't quite do what you want, contribute back to it. They're not scared. Everyone likes accessibility PR. And this is an example from Material UI. They have a bit at the bottom that's often like, hey, accessibility, we couldn't do everything. Here's another thing to make sure. This is specific about icon buttons. It's all right to add a label. In fact, in your code, it will probably make more sense of like, oh yeah, that's what this button is supposed to do versus hamburger. Maybe you want an actual hamburger. And lastly, project managers. This tool has been one of the most helpful for me. Not that I manage. I don't particularly like doing that. But as a developer going through an app, as a tool to give people, this tool was suggested to me. This is the Accessibility Insights for Web. I suggest this ends up as the sort of guardian of your application before it gets out the door. It is comprehensive. You can do automated checks. Automated checks are about 20% of the work with accessibility. The reason we have all of the automated checks is to make the rest of it a better experience. So for the most part, that will take out a lot of the noise, and then being able to go through an app and seeing all of the things to look out for. The reason I like this is because it's a large checklist. If you've noticed a theme with a lot of these bits, it's either automated, there's errors, there's links to documentation, there's checklists. All of these things are sort of explicit and objective, not talking about the legitimacy of UIs. But to go through, and you can see here, a few of these things are just keyboard navigations. It has a way for you to guide you through your app. It'll show you a little number, stops for every tab you go through so you can track your journey through your app. If you're a designer, seeing how someone uses your app like this with a little feedback to see where someone has been, you can go backwards and forwards. If you're a developer, to see like, oh, that was supposed to be selected, but it wasn't. It was skipped over because I thought I'd be clever with this button and it was a div, or this widget isn't working properly, or oh, look, that's where the focus is actually going when you get lost. It's very helpful when you don't have focus styles and things and you realize I am very lost in my application. At least this will track where it goes. So there's a myriad of tools to help teach you as well. So I think it's important for both the project manager to go through, so it gives you eyes to look out for things. But for all y'all, I have been through this. I've sent other people through this journey, because then you realize all of the different ways to use your app and all of the different questions you need to manually ask about your app. And this is a part that can't be, it's not a shortcut. You just need to learn how to do it to experience it. And it's a journey. And also, the better you do with this, and the better, that means it will create better apps in the future. The better apps in the future, this checklist gets a lot faster. So different ways to advocate for accessibility as you find it. Designers, I learned how to use DevTools. There is so much in DevTools. Don't be intimidated. Nobody knows how to use everything inside of DevTools. But if you right-click on something and inspect, you'll be dropped into the elements, your colors, what tags are supposed to be. Learn, it's okay to be nervous about it, but start to be comfortable. I was in a meeting once, or it was over, but I would happen to be sharing my screen for some reason, as we did that a lot, just hanging out. And I was looking at some other website, and I saw an animation. And I hit inspect, and I started looking at how they did their weird UI stuff. And then one of, I think it was the project manager, was like, it's kind of creepy. Like, you're just looking at their code? I'm like, it's on the internet. This is an okay thing to do, to see what other people have done with, if you see a cool widget, to figure out how in the world they did said widget, or you see a group of colors, or you see whatever you want, go through. It's always good to check out those web tools. Developers. It is very true that mockups are cheaper to change than code. So it's okay to be in on design bits, to look at something and be like, nah, I don't know how to do that, or that's not accessible, or you're missing a close button on your menu, or this dialogue has a few features that would make it a mess. But being able to be upfront with your design team, because all of a sudden if they have to add focus styles to everything after the fact, and then it messes with their color scheme, and then it looks gross, or if they're using colors that aren't right, it's much easier to do that in the front. And lastly, PMs, with this process, I would encourage you to give your team time, because that's what it will take. So time to get their tooling set up, make sure your designers have these things automated, and that's okay. To learn about accessibility, make sure your developers have these things automated. Ask the question of like, hey, do you do accessibility checks in your CI? The answer should eventually be yes. Current project I'm working on right now does not have that, so I feel slightly hypocritical, but this will help. I would say give your team time, because it's going to create a better product. So the whole slow is smooth and smooth is fast, because doing this retroactively is a nightmare. When you have a product that's already been developed and then you have to retrofit it with accessibility bits, that's where everyone gets a bad taste of accessibility. I Googled accessibility nightmares today, and there was a bunch of people complaining about this because it was a retrofit of going back and trying to tackle something again.
Just occurred to me, I was wondering, are there kind of parallels to things like focus styles and cover styles that are on mobile? Usually you wouldn't have either of those things unless I'm missing something.
Mobile's fun. Mobile is what all of your other edge cases are going to come from. Often an interaction that happens on mobiles, you tap a button and it will hold on to a focus style. I've had designers complain about it. It looks ugly when I use it on mobile. You gotta know where you were. Make it prettier focus style. Like, let's workshop here. In mobile, accessibility has less checks and balances than web. There are less mature automated tooling for it. There's less mature checklists for mobile. I guess the whole view of things, it's just been around less time, so there's less tooling around it. But they're accepting PRs. So
I mean, there's still a parallel. You can say it's a web app, but it's used on a mobile device. So it's just some of the same features that already exist there but aren't going to apply to it are there. So like I put in cover styles on this, but you're not going to see them because you're viewing the website in your mobile browser, or it's a mobile app that's done by wrapping the website and putting it in. I was just wondering if you had any particular specific ideas or suggestions for kind of the things that those would cover in a desktop.
still thinking about your accessibility, there's going to be a lot of interactions that you'll have to think about that are touch interactions as opposed to using a mouse or keyboard. So it's going to work a little bit differently. So it's, you don't have some of the keys that are in a keyboard. You can't just click out of things per se. Does it zoom right? One thing that's bad on mobile is font sizes go all over the place. So realizing that, if all of a sudden everything either explodes out where it needs to be or it turns super tiny, it's part of your checks that you have to do. But that's, I don't have any more specific things than that.
For mobile design, and that is fingers are fat. And if you have tappable elements that are too close together, you will tap on the wrong one. It's true also with the cursor, but at least the cursor, like it stays in one spot and it's not moving your mouse. Fingers, especially with going into like people with disabilities, fingers are fat.
Hit slot. That's the name of the property in React Native. Is you can set a pixel amount for hit slot of like wherever your finger is going to like be close enough to the button to activate it. But that's a word that Devin actually showed me. I will say though, design and thinking about those questions, that's the very least we can do. So then you figure out, so like having that on the forefront, right? Oh, yeah. Also, slides.com has a Giphy like integration with it, so you can just abuse this. It's wonderful. That's all to say. Accessibility is fueled by empathy. That's all of us. Being able to think that art is the thing I'm making going to be used by everyone, but also knowing that if it can be used by everyone, I would argue it makes it a better thing. So, I have a couple of links if you find the slides. And the Axe plugins, testing framework, accessibility insights for web is wonderful. There's a myriad of Figma and or Adobe XD. All of these things exist. My tools are limited because I am only one person. However, there is a tool for what you need. And then at the very least, y'all have keyboards. Every device has a screen reader built into it. And there's ways to do this. So I hope that your managers do give you enough time. And I hope they all see the benefits of an accessible product for everyone. So that's all my words. I'm gonna leave that there, and I'll be kicking it for questions and whatnot. So. I guess any questions for the class now that I've finished spewing? Yeah.
So, one thing I've been interested in, you might know the answer, or maybe you can help.
Or in some
It's, I want to learn about screen readers. I want to be able to actually read articles and read code with my eyes closed while laying in bed or, and so, but a lot of screen readers seem to assume I'll hold the keyboard. But if I'm just laying in bed, what I want is like a Apple TV remote, a little remote control or a Game Boy, Nintendo Switch controller or something, to be able to navigate VoiceOver, which is I'm an iOS person. VoiceOver is the screen reader tech for iOS. I want to be able to navigate a standard screen reader, but with a handheld control as opposed to a full task keyboard.
So yeah, navigating screen readers, PMs, I had to dedicate a significant amount of time to learn how to use a screen reader in order to do a screen reader evaluation of the app, which is still subpar than letting someone who uses a screen reader all the time navigate through. The complicated part is the amount that you're able to do with your eyes needs to be replicated on a keyboard more or less because of all of the different skipping functions to be able to skim articles to make your way quickly through a piece of content that's not like terribly laborious.
So there's no hardware devices smaller than a keyboard that can do all the necessary navigation.
The default is for a massive keyboard. I guess the thing that I would look for is mixing a screen reader with an assistive keyboard, which has like 4 directions and things. But then, I mean, even to type on something that's that small, it is also, it just takes longer. So
you don't need to type when you're just reading like an article.
well, it's not needing to type, but I mean, like the constraints of that device and then apply. Yeah, there's hopefully someone who's done that because I can't imagine there's not a situation in which you need both a screen reader and something to use with limited mobility. But those would be the 2 things that you'd want to pair. But I do not know anything more specific than that. And it would be kind of convenient. How fast are you on your screen reader?
I don't actually use it. I was just trying to.
I just kind of imagine, yeah.
I thought this would be a great way for me to actually assess. Basically, I would be able to assess the screen readability of it by closing my eyes and having, don't have a whole keyboard.
It is a chore, because you bring up a good point, it's a chore to learn a
One controller. And be able to read the New York Times or a PPR.
I mean, I guess if it's very well formatted HTML, it wouldn't be terribly difficult. As far as finding the specific device, because you can map all of your keys how you want. There's lots of customization. VoiceOver is okay. There's NVDA, which is the open source one for PC. And then there's JAWS, which is like $2,000 or something ridiculous. And requires like a pile of licensing. And they get better as they go. And unfortunately, between all of these devices, there's also no coherency. It's like getting email. They have different things. They pick up different tags. They have different behaviors in what they do. So that's also like a hurdle with this. Is there's less consensus there. Yeah.
Sort of wanted to respond there, and please correct this. Now, I'm very new to dive into this, but I might guess that just reading through in one go wouldn't actually be quite the accessibility check that you might hope for, because I think some of the importance of it being workable in a screen reader is also being able to navigate a site. So can you skip to the next heading?
Yeah.
To the different.
So like I imagine the buttons can be like drilling down into things and drilling back out. So it's like navigating an AST, but sort of trying to do it with one or two buttons.
Yeah, the application remote control is pretty cool. And it has the mic on it, so you can talk to it, tell Siri to do stuff with it.
You have to build it.
Sounds like a Eugene hackathon. Any other things for the class? Yeah.
Give an example of where you might need a screen reader and all the time. They're I do a lot of hospital in the X-ray suite. They are wearing gloves. They're wearing they need to read checklists, repair checklists. So it's going to be where you actually and that's a constant.
Yeah, like 20, I did an app that needed people to use with gloves, and all of a sudden you think about the situational disability of being dirty and having a phone and realizing the different things. Do you want dictation and all this bit? But these are things to think about when, hopefully, before you've created things, because after is a different experience. Well, Nifty, reach out if y'all have any more questions online or. Thank you.
Okay, yep. So Greg mentioned all these links in here. There is a README linked on Meetup right now that has all the links from this section and links to the slides and links to your Twitter if you want to add anything to it. So yeah, you don't have to like take pictures of screens if you want. They're just in a bubble somewhere. You can find that link on Meetup. Yeah, so thanks for coming, everybody. Please hang out and bother Greg more. Looks like so yay. And see you next month. Thank you.